Sometimes you're the Louisville Slugger, sometimes you're the ball. And lately, I've been the bug. Hopefully, here soon, I'll be the windshield. We've had a very crazy few weeks here. I won't get into details. If you want to get into that, you can take a look at my video, How to Avoid Two-Step Verification Hell. It will kind of explain a lot of what I've been through in the last couple of weeks. I was planning on doing this live about an hour and a half ago, but we had some crazy rain here, and this is a rainy season. As you can see, it's a little overcast, and typical, as you can see by my roof in Central America, I have a metal roof. So when it rains hard here, it sounds like there's a train coming down the tracks, even inside the house. Inside the house, it's a little bit better, but I don't have an Ethernet cable set up in the house, and it's loud, and so I don't know how good the audio quality would be. So I just decided to wait till the rain finished, and then I just went for a little walk. And it's really interesting growing up in northern Canada in the winter. There's a lot of ice here. It's really fascinating. Uh, I live next to a volcano. There's a lot of really fertile soil, and some of the dirt gets packed so hard. And as you can see, I have really dense like jungle, like foliage kind of deal. And so there's a lot of places where there's not a lot of undergrowth because there just isn't a lot of sun that gets down into there, which is great for, protecting yourself from the heat. Well, that hard dirt, it's almost like a clay. When it rains a lot, you get this kind of mossy kind of glaze on the top. And when it rains, it can be extremely slippery. So I just kind of busted my ass walking back here. I'm fine, but it's the closest thing I can be reminded of black ice in Canada. But let's get on to the topic. So I tend to track these hard charging clients, and a lot of times they'll come to me and we'll do like they're in a bad place, they're not getting the results they want fitness wise, or they're burned out completely, they have a bunch of nagging injuries, and then I start making recommendations for them. And a lot of times they're doing like tough mutters, or they're doing like spinning classes or high intensity classes. And I'll suggest something like, hey, like why don't we go for a walk like a couple times a day for 10 minutes? Let's do some, let's do some binaural beats, or let's do some calm relaxation. And you would think I was asking them to like, sell one of their children, or like blow up their house. Um, a lot of people will much have a much easier time doing more intensity or a harder program than they will relaxing, shutting off, or working in, or doing like a Tai Chi, or doing something like that. I think a lot of it is people have just bought into this kind of notion that hard work equals results. And that is true. But there are some things that need to happen, like sleep and getting outside and relaxing, in order for results to happen, because training, life is stress. And in order to recover and adapt to that stress, you have to do the opposite. You have to push, you have to relax. And a lot of people fall into this like dopamine hit, like simple activities like relaxation, walking, those don't provide that euphoric feeling. And it doesn't provide that social kind of, people see you training hard, people see you running a half marathon, people see you running a marathon, and they're like patting you on the back. People see you sitting on a park bench breathing through your nose. They kind of like they don't even, one, they probably don't even notice. And two, if you are doing like, some sort of meditation or something, people almost look at you like you're crazy, or lazy, something along those lines. So a lot of people are addicted to the stress response. They're addicted to that like high dopamine type thing, because they're scrolling on their phone, they're constantly being stimulated. So when you ask them to sit down and be present, they really don't, they have a hard time with it, because they're not getting that reward that comes with pushing, right? And that cortisol feeling. And busyness is as an escape. And I use this for years, like always staying busy, always doing something, so I didn't have to deal with the silence in my own head. I didn't like myself. I didn't like a lot of the things that I had going on inside my head. So instead of having to slow down and actually deal with them, I would just work harder. I would just train more. I would just train more people. I would, always be busy. And then when I went to bed at night, I would be totally exhausted. So I would literally just, when I hit the pillow, I'd finally, like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, I was so tired, I would just literally physically fall asleep instantly because I was so tired. I didn't have the ability to sit there quietly and have to deal with those thoughts in my head. I was so scared of that. And a lot of people don't feel comfortable with themselves and don't want to sit quietly. I remember, when I was working and training people at LIC, I was working, a lot of a night shift bouncing at clubs. I was training, 6, 8 hours a day, training in person, plus working at a high school, training a basketball team there. I used to literally have a 15-minute break or a client would miss a session. I would go into the aerobics room, lay down flat on the floor, and pass out completely unconscious. I'd be snoring. People could say they could hear me snoring outside of the aerobics room. People would come in there and shake me and couldn't wake me up. That's how exhausted I was, but I continued to keep pushing because I didn't want to deal with my own reality in my head. So a lot of times the too busy part is because we don't want to slow down and actually deal with what the body's trying to teach us. The body will often give us clues like, through symptoms and being tired, not having energy. The body's like, hey, you need to slow down, you need to take better care of yourself. But we just kind of push through it because we really don't want to deal with what's going on and the actual, like, we hear a ticking in the engine and we just like, well, they just turn up the stereo or put some octane boost in there, or whatever, instead of actually taking the mechanic and figuring out what's going on. And a lot of it is external validation, like I said before, because people aren't going to pat you on the back for going to a meditation class or doing a non-sleep deep rest. That's more private. A lot of people want to have that, other people saying, wow, you're amazing, right? But I have this a lot, like executives who work like 12-hour days, but they have no time for 5-minute breathing drill, like crocodile breathing, or somebody who deadlifts 600 pounds, who's doing all these crazy workouts but doesn't have time to do 10 or 15 minutes of dynamic warm-up before his training. Somebody will do CrossFit or high intensity workouts, spinning classes, but doesn't have the time to do a 10-minute walk breathing through their nose, where exercise isn't the goal, relaxation is. So I see this time and time again. And the way we overcome this is we stack habits, um, going for a walk in the morning while your coffee's brewing or whatever. That's a great way to do it. And understanding that there are things that you can do, like buying a dividend stock. You don't get that instant gratification of the stock. Like most dividend stocks don't radically go up. You get dividends every few months. So by investing in getting outside, investing in getting more sleep, you're not going to get that instant gratification of doing like a really hard training session, but you're going to get the long-term results of being consistent, of your sleep improving, your digestion improving, your recovery getting better. And so these little habits, the little hinges swing big doors. And the thing that people don't realize is a lot of the things, the workout, like over the years, I've had so many people that were training really hard, and the training modalities they were choosing were actually leading to them not getting any better. So if you're constantly training hard and pushing hard, but you're not resting, that training is just going to beat you up over time. And if you're not managing stress, you're just going to eat more food. I've had plenty of people running marathons. I've had plenty of people that were training 6 days a week, sometimes twice a day, gaining weight. And when we finally dialed their training back and got them to do a lot more restorative work, all of a sudden they started losing weight. They got in a better place. So my challenge to you is, like, instead of trying to do more difficult things, just start trying to work in more. Like if you're pushing all the time, if you're working a lot of hours, you're not happy with the results that you're getting, start thinking about, am I getting enough sleep? Am I getting outside? Is my circadian rhythm in order? Am I relaxing enough, or am I always in this, like, fired up state? And a lot of times, this gets overlooked in our modern world because we've got all these people that are really unfit and unhealthy, but they live an indoor lifestyle. They're chronically spinning in their head. They're living a chronic indoor lifestyle combined with like no activity, right? And then they try and make up for the intensity. So these people, yes, they need more exercise, but they need to fix their circadian rhythm and they need to get more active daily, and then they can put exercise on top of that. People will try and put exercise and intensity on a foundation of like broken circadian rhythm and zero manual labor, zero work capacity. And it might work for a little while, but it generally doesn't work over the long haul. So my general thought on this, and kind of to recap, I know I kind of went all over the place, but are you the type of person that's trying to do more And like it has to be it has to be more effort has to be the answer. I'm trying to chop a tree down with a baseball bat. Like maybe you don't need to try harder. Maybe you just need to go get an axe. You need to get the right tool, right? Is your training? Are you losing body fat? Are you not? You're not losing body fat like you want to, or you've got pain, or you don't feel great? Is it because you're not resting enough, or is it because you need to work harder, or maybe you need to choose a different activity that's going to give you a better outcome, right? And that's where talking to me, I've been doing this for like 30 years. I'm really good at like kind of interviewing you and problem solving and figuring out, okay, is it because you're doing a certain type of activity that's giving you a certain result? Or, is the diet you're on working for you? Are you getting outside? Kind of working through all this and chatting and having problem solving, troubleshooting, um, and figuring out the best way to get you the result and the outcome that you like. And then experimenting from there, trying new things. You can come into the Vitality Brotherhood, Vitality Sisterhood, join those groups. You can ask questions. I have a men's call tonight at 6 p.m., I believe. There's a women's call on Monday at 6 p.m. They're every other week. And so I'd love to have you ask questions. I also do men's and women's coaching. If you'd like to talk to me, and if you're struggling with some things, I'd be happy to help you. So thanks for tuning in today. Thank you for your patience, and I will see you again soon. Make sure you get outside. Once again, I'll go over the 5 fundamental habits. I think this is essential for everyone, no matter what you have going on. This is the foundation of health, as far as I'm concerned, from what I've experienced myself and with working with hundreds of people over the last 30 years, and also spending the last 3 years coaching people in a medical practice. Walk outside 3 times a day, 10 minutes after each meal, helps with digestion, helps calm you down, fixes your circadian rhythm, which will help you sleep better, which helps you make better choices. Just overall, awesome. 10 minutes, 3 times a day. If you can't walk, do some sort of activity, at least get outside for 10 minutes, a couple times a day, get the light in your eyes, fix your circadian rhythm. I have one lady that actually bought a folding chair, and she could walk for a minute, and she would put the chair down and rest, and then she would walk for another minute, and then she'd turn around and come back. And now she's built up to being able to walk for 10 minutes 3 times a day. And there's all sorts of floor exercises we can do. If you come into the Vitality Brotherhood, Vitality Sisterhood, there's all sorts of stuff I have in there about how to improve your gait cycle, how to get yourself moving again if you're in a bad place. Eat a protein at every meal. This helps you maintain muscle mass, build muscle mass. It also helps with satiety. Drink high quality water, preferably spring water. Also helps with satiety. Also helps give you all the minerals and electrolytes that you need. A lot of people just aren't drinking enough water. Just seeing that time and time again. Get the lights off at night. Most people these days are scrolling on their phone scrolling on the phone all day, and then they scroll on it at night, and it affects their sleep. And your sleep's messed up. You don't make good choices. You turn to a human vacuum cleaner. Just on and on and on. And then social connection. You got to have good personal interaction. I've learned the hard way in Nicaragua. I learned during the beer bug that if you're off by yourself, you're isolated, you don't have a lot of social connection, it can really mess with your health and well-being. So that's something in a world where we're probably connected too much with the screen. We're always in touch, but it's not an authentic human interaction. So you want to make sure you've got plenty of authentic human interaction in there. So thanks for watching. Let me know if you kind of fall into this trap in the comments. Are you constantly trying to do more things? Are you pushing harder? Instead of, do you find it difficult to do these little basic habits, the low hanging fruit? A lot of people, including myself, have struggled with these simple little things in order to get better. But, those are the things that move the needle over the long period of time. The best athletes are constantly working on the fundamentals. They have coaches to make sure they don't neglect the fundamentals. Make sure you're working on your fundamentals of your health and wellness. Have yourself a great day. We'll see you again soon.